Продовжуємо наші співбесіди і просимо
So
запросити.
we'll continue with our interviews and we need to invite our next candidate, Roman Романюк.
Доброго дня, пане Романе.
Good afternoon, Roman. We are happy to welcome you here. You can see 3 members of the Commission. 3 are behind you, they are online. 3 members of the Commission are live. I will hand over to Natalia Nishchenko, who is the rapporteur on your case. Roman, greetings from the Commission. We ask you to give specific answers. If possible, be precise where it is appropriate. Are you ready to start? Good. Let's do that. Starting in 2010, you have been associated with several different political parties. In 2010, you were elected to the Lutsk City Council as a member of the For Ukraine Party. In 2014, you joined Solidarity of Petro Poroshenko. In 2020, you ran as a non-partisan candidate for the Regional Council as a member of the Servant of the People Party. So how could you explain so many various political affiliations? Thank you. Yes, that variety still lasted for many years. You stated correctly, it's from 2010 to 2020. Yet all of the political forces that I was affiliated with as a member of the party, sometimes I just ran without being a party member. All of these political forces were democratic. They had proper national views, good teams that I found were closer in their spirit, in their ideology to my vision. We also had the same vision about the development of our country. In 2010, the Party for Ukraine was headed by Vyacheslav Kirilenko. I was a member of the party and I ran for the city council in Lutsk and I was an MP. In 2010-2015, I was a deputy. I think it is 2012, due to various political reasons, Party for Ukraine united or basically was merged. I'm sorry, you're saying this is similar platforms, they're all democratic parties. Still, why did you change? What was so special about the other party? Yes, I'm explaining that. For Ukraine basically ceased to exist in 2012 because it was merged with the Front of Change, which means I was also a member of that party because our team joined that political party. Then the Revolution of Dignity, 2013-2014, changed the political environment. I worked at a private enterprise, Bogdan Motors. My boss headed the political election headquarters of one of the candidates to the presidency, Petro Poroshenko. I was also invited to join in the political campaign because at that time I was the assistant to the head, and I joined that political force that was created in July, or it became politically active in July 2014, and as a result, I headed Volyn regional part of that political force. It was called Petro Poroshenko's Bloc Solidarity. It changed its name several times, and then in 2018 or until 2018, September or October 2018, I headed the regional subdivision of Solidarity in Volyn. Then I handed it over. I left all of the management of the political party. I left the party. And after that, I had no legal or other ties to the political force. Thank you. The question that is related to what we have been talking about right now. Do you think that you really are a politically independent candidate for the position of the head of an ACP? Well, if yes, then yeah. If no, you understand we can't have a discussion after that, but we want you to demonstrate your conviction. Yes, I would like to highlight that I am politically independent. I am distant from any political force in Ukraine. It stays after an unfortunate attempt to run for Volyn Regional Council from the Servant of the People in 2020, where I ran, but I was not elected as an MP. So after that, it was obvious for me that I want to continue my career as a civil servant because I want to really do something as a part of the civil service. So starting from July 2020, I took an oath of a civil servant and I started working as the head of the Secretariat and a Special Commissioner on Human Rights. Yes, I worked until February the 2nd this year. This is related to some other events of your life. It's not related to my personal circumstances. It's all right. It's okay there. But we have different views on our possible cooperation with my immediate leadership. Good, thank you. So let's discuss the positions. This is something I would like to clarify. When you were the head of Volyn Regional Employment Center, okay, you were very active in Solidarity at the time. You started working as a director in February 2017. At that time and until August 2018, you were the head of the Volyn regional organization of this party. And after that, for another 9 months until August 2019, you were a member of the organization's council, please note. If you look at the list of employees, it's second item, the list of employees appointment to the employment center during your time in the office. We can find a whole cohort of people who were somehow connected with the Solidarity Party. That's why we asked you about the party affiliation. Moreover, some of these people worked as employees in the Volyn territorial organization of the party. That means that in that party, they were your direct subordinates. And you knew about their party affiliation. I think you understand who we're talking about. If not, we can refresh your memory. Can I answer? I know who you mean, because I received your request and I provided a written answer to that. So, you did not report the presence of potential conflict of interest. Before you start answering these three questions, you know that conflicts can be real and potential, and you understand the legislation that guides that. And now the third part of the question. There was no external control to this situation. Can you give examples of external controls that should have existed in this situation? So please do provide your answers to all of the three questions asked. Thank you. Generally, I would like to inform you that starting February 2nd, 2017, I was first an acting head of Volyn Regional Employment Center. That was my test and trial period. And then I was reappointed as the head of Volyn Regional Employment Center, where I worked successfully until July 2022. It coincided was the period when I was working, like we already heard, I started doing that in 2014. I was the head of the Volyn regional party organization of Petro Poroshenko. It may have had a different name, not Solidarity at that time. And as the Volyn Regional Employment Center, I could hire and fire people, and that was a working process of firing and hiring people. I knew these people were or used to be members of the party, or maybe ran from that political force, or at least wanted to, and the priority for me here when I hired them, it was their professional qualities, their life experience, their moral qualities, which were high. So these were the criteria that I paid attention to when I was hiring them. So you're saying that you only found professional people within one political force? No. I said that I appointed, or I fired and hired a lot of people. That was the process of we had in the organization. When I was hiring people, I think that any employer does that. They don't ask about party affiliation. That can be violation of the principle of free speech, free religion, free affiliation. People can have different ideas. So when I was hiring people, I never asked them about their political affiliation or political likes or dislikes.
Сказала досить чітко і ясно, що ви цих людей мусили...
colleague quite clearly stated that you must have known those people in your party line of work. So why do you ask them if they're members of the party if you know it already? Well, it's about other general people. I never asked them about their political affiliation. Working in the position, I have appointed quite many people, and it's many more than the list. Okay, looking retrospectively, yes, I would like to draw attention to the fact that when appointing people to key positions, people even who are on the list, who were either party members or were in connection with the party members, we have had the procedure of agreement in the Central Secretariat in Kyiv at the level of top managers. So I could not have appointed them without them having the interview at the level of the director of the Center of Employment. Okay, so in your opinion, we're not talking about any potential conflict of interest. In my opinion, in my professional work as the director and executing the functions, I only based on the professional qualities of any employee, including those who were identified in the list, whom you are emphasizing more. But there was no external control on the situation, so nobody told you that. No, never. Never there were any questions regarding that or my possible being subjective or any of those things when employing people. Moreover, I'd like to mention that regardless of political affiliation, because there were 350 people working, it constantly changed, and there were no questions to any political party affiliation. Regardless of the affiliation, there were no conflict. So not potential, not real conflict of interest happened, so there was no need to use external control for that. Thank you. Let's go a little bit deeper into this issue then, into the theory of conflicts and how it happens in practice. One more question about the conflict of interest. in April 2017, after several months, you appointed the sister of your wife, Святослава Навроцька, but you reported the conflict of interest only in October 2019, when this sister at the legislative level was included into the circle of close relatives. As far as the Commission knows, no article of corruption prevention law states what could you explain on this situation? Didn't it take you quite a long time to inform about this conflict of interest? And given your idea of the theory of conflict of interest, don't you think that there is a certain conflict of interest in theory and there is practice within the practice? Let's talk about the theory. Once again, regardless of sex, regardless of age or education, when employing people, I only based on their professional qualities, the skills and competencies that they needed to perform those tasks that corresponded their positions. This is why in April 2017, as you have rightfully mentioned, Svetoslava Navrotsika was appointed as an accountant, as a narrow professional in accounting. And because this person, as you have rightfully mentioned, at the time, according to the anti-corruption legislation that was relevant at the time, was not clearly identified as a closed circle, and the amendment took place only in October 2019. As you have rightfully mentioned, it was the point when Svetoslava Navrotsika became a part of my closed circle, and I have taken the measures according to the legislation to report that. So you did not think that the sister of your wife working under your management as a conflict of interest? I will explain. She worked in accounting department where the head of the department was the head accountant. In the structure, there are employees who are directly subordinate to the director, and also are those who are subordinate to the heads of the department. And she was subordinate to the head of the department. And all the functional and operational tasks for her came from that person. Also, the additional rewards, monetary rewards that she received came from the head accountant, but the head accountant was subordinate to you. Do you understand it correctly? Yes, of course. Well, interview is always about seeing the person in a broad context. That's why we're going to ask you questions from different spheres with different emphasis. The issues related to your declarations. One is about the land plot meant to build the garage that you're renting in Lutsk together with 2 other people. And in your explanation, you said that in 2015, you seemingly agreed with the other co-renters that he would pay the rent for your share of the land plot. However, the Commission also has an additional agreement that you signed in 2016, where you confirmed that you continue to be the co-lessee of this plot. So can you explain why this land plot was not on your declaration between 2016 and 2020? Thank you for the question. You are completely right that this story with the rent started. It's a very small, about 80 or 82 square meters to build a garage that happened in 2010, and it was rented for 5 years. And then I had an oral agreement with another co-lessee that he will use this in the future and he will pay the corresponding tax according to the legislation, and possibly he will build something there or perform some other activities. But the condition to continue the rent agreement that you have mentioned in 2016 is fulfilling the condition of the previous agreement. So to have 3 co-lessees on the previous agreement, we needed to have 3 co-lessees again, because if he were the one to take it completely, he would need to reapply to receive it, this land plot to rent. This is why, indeed, in 2016, there was an additional agreement signed that prolonged the term for 25 years, for quite a long time, to continue renting this land plot. As of right now, and during the previous periods, there was no construction in this land plot. There was no work done there. It is located not in the central street, or not in the street at all, but back in the second, third line, and I have provided the corresponding photographs. The goal to receive this land plot was, of course, to build a garage, and possibly, as one of the directions, we were thinking about some kind of a workshop to repair cars. But as it often happens in our life, the plans are different with the real situation and the real possibilities. So who is paying for this land plot? Marchuk Vitaly, one of the co-lessees, is paying for this rent plot starting from 2016, and until now he fully pays. And the situation is okay for him. As far as I know, I've talked to him about the situation. It's not a very big rent amount per year. He plans, but life makes its amendments, so full-scale invention, epidemic, and all that things. In your declarations, you have not mentioned about receiving income from physical persons. Let's talk about this as well. Excluding the money received for selling the car. And to answer our request, you reported that in the last 5 years, starting from January 19, you received money only from 3 physical persons who are not the members of your family. And one of them was a loan of 2023 that was returned. We want to know the following: whether you are ready to provide full bank statements for this period, if the Commission requests this additionally, to confirm that there were no other similar operations. And if yes, we will be waiting for this document. And, of course, there is no doubt about this, because we're talking about integrity and about transparency of the candidate. Of course, I will provide, to the request of the Commission, all the bank statements on my card accounts that I have. Luckily, not that many. Maybe on the contrary, no. You say, thank God, not too many. Well, it's easier to provide this information. If I had many card accounts in the context, it would be a different story. In this context, yes. But I think also the Commission has the possibility to receive this information, maybe already has it. But if there is need, let's say identify the format at the time, and I will provide my bank statements. We did not try to violate your bank secret, so we would like to you to help us with that. Okay, so let's identify the deadline and the format. Next question. Could you explain why you did not include the payback of the loan of 19,000 hryvnia into your declaration for 2023? Well, first, it's a rather everyday situation when people support each other, and the sum is not that big. It's like 50 minimum wages that need to be declared, right? And by the end of the year, the man, in the best traditions of Ukraine, gave me the money back, and that was it. This is your explanation. The sum is not too big, and this everyday situation. And if it was a bigger sum, would you have done differently? If he was giving you a big loan, yes, of course. If it was the size that exceeds 50 minimum wages in one payment, of course, I would have reflected this information in the declaration. Okay, thank you. Let us now talk about something else. In March 2014, you addressed the Lutsk City Council to be put on the list for a new apartment, and you mentioned that together with your 2 children, but without your wife, you were living in the apartment of your parents in Lutsk, let's say. But answering our request, you said that starting from 2011 to 2015, you lived together with your wife in the house of her parents in the village Zhidichin, if I mention it right. Could you please explain us the following? As far as we know, according to our knowledge, in 2016, you have acquired an apartment. Is it the same apartment that you received according to your request to the Lutsk City Council, or is it a different apartment? No, when I applied to be put on the list for apartments to Lutsk City Council, it did not have any positive outcome. For me, I mean that I did not receive either an apartment from the state nor any other decreased loans. This is the story back from 2014. I applied. I asked to be put on the list, and I wanted to receive housing with the state loan. There was a program, I don't remember the name, but there were 3% of annual interest for young families. So those were the motives to ask to put myself on the list. And in the period that the young family who don't have their own personal housing, we lived during a certain period with the parents of my wife, and then for a certain period we tried in Zhidichin, under the city of Lutsk, what is slightly inconvenient when you try to get to the city. At the same time, we did not have our own car. It was a little bit uncomfortable. So we were looking together with the wife for the possibility to move to the city. We were looking into options. We were looking into option of living in the apartment that is owned by my father. During a certain period in 2014, that coincided with me submitting that application. I think that for 2 months, we lived at Kravchuka 7 in the city of Lutsk, in the apartment owned by my father. And then we went back to Zhidichin village. But when we made the family decision that the older son, we have decided that he needs to go to school in Lutsk city, where, in my opinion, in my subjective opinion, there is more opportunities for a child to get better education. In 2015, we started living in the parents' apartment. Thank you. So this apartment that you acquired in 2016, was it being built in 2014? What could you comment on that? This house, the construction started in early 2000s. It is, as you would say, the problematic building where the construction company went bankrupt in 2007 or 8 in a classic story, ran abroad, there were a number of criminal proceedings and so on and so forth. And by creating a cooperative, people with their money have finished the construction of this house, this apartment house. And in 2016, I became the owner and received the right to own this apartment by buying a part from the other member of the cooperative. And the money for that But my personal savings, the support from the parents, my parents and my wife's parents, it was an important goal for a young family to have their own place to live. This is why we put effort together and we bought this apartment where the cost was considerably lower per square meter than on average in the market, because, to repeat myself, it was a problematic building, and it did not have, the apartment did not have a high level renovation, nothing installed, as it is usually done by modern construction companies. So when in 2014 you addressed the Lutsk City Council to be put on the list to receive the apartment from the state, you were not building the apartment. I never built this apartment. I'm emphasizing I bought the share of ownership in the cooperative from the member of the cooperative in 2016. So in 2014, I did not even suggest that I will be further living in this building and in this apartment. So basically, you bought not even the apartment, but some kind of rights, property rights. That, yes, yeah, right. And when did you manage to receive this apartment according to this agreement? Well, it happened almost simultaneously, because when I received ownership, so the building was already, they started using the building. Yes. Do you know the story of the building? How much time has passed between it became possible to use and till the agreement that you signed? I don't know this information, unfortunately. And also, please let us know, when you have acquired this apartment, have you cancelled your request to the city council? No, I've not. It's still there. There are several thousand of these applications there, but nonetheless, do you now think that you need to improve your living conditions? No. As of right now, I have my own apartment that I own and where my family lives, my wife and my children. So in your opinion, what do you need to do with this application in the city council? It's still there. Well, very relatively. Of course, I understand why you're asking this question and why you're emphasizing this, but of course, I can submit the application to be excluded from the list of the city council. But in any case, even if hypothetical situation would reach my turn, I'm about 25th thousandth there on the list. Whether I would, as of right now, I have my apartment. It's registered officially. I was not looking for possibilities as other people do, mostly MPs and public officials, to make somebody else the owner. I work honestly, transparently during my entire life. We welcome that. And how much did this share cost? In the declaration, we mentioned that it costs exactly the same that was paid, 635,000, I think. Could you please mention the exact amount?
648,000 Ukrainian hryvnia. Thank you. We shall move on. So in 2022, you move to Kyiv when you are appointed the head of the Secretariat of the Ombudsman. We talked about it. We have data that since then you have been renting an apartment in a prestigious neighborhood, and the apartment has almost 60 square meters, and the monthly rent is 15,000 hryvnia. Do you think it is below market rent for the apartments in this region of Kyiv? What do you have to say? Why were you so lucky? Thank you for your question. I will inform you that, first of all, this building was built, I think, in the 70s or the 60s, maybe earlier. So this is a not a newly commissioned building, and this government quarter has no buildings that have been built recently. Well, we don't have too many of them anywhere. I come from Kiev as well. I'm trying to say that the flat is not very new. It doesn't have a very modern equipment. It hasn't been refurbished as a very luxurious piece of property. And then from July 2022, people who live in Kiev left the city, like many other people did. They left other cities as well. So rent was significantly lower than it was before the full-scale invasion. In spring, it was very cheap to rent an apartment because the risks were very high. I mean, the risks of both an invasion of those bad people coming them to Kiev and then attacks on Kiev. In summer, when I was looking for this apartment, because I didn't want to spend a lot of time traveling to work, time is valued for me. I was looking for something very close to my work, to the central office, which is located at Institutska 21/8. So in July 2022, when I was looking for the apartment, this prices existed. And I need to note here that I was lucky. Yes, I have a good relationship with the owner. They do not raise the rent. So what we had in the very beginning still applies into all of the additional agreements that we sign every year. So we decided that 15,000 hryvnia is in summer and 14,000 for winter period when you have to pay more because of heating. Okay. You provided us with your military ID, and it shows that you're still registered with the military commissariat in Volyn region. Can you explain why you did not register for military service at the place where you actually reside in 2022, as is required by law? If I'm not mistaken, the law allows you to be registered with the military commissariat where you actually live or where you are registered. But since I am registered as a reserve, I don't have any contacts with the centers, territorial centers for recruiting. And I came to that particular center, no ties with others, but here I did my medical exam. This is where I'm registered. They issued my official document. For me, it's important that I am registered with the military secretariat. Did you receive the approval to leave to the territorial commissariat? I did not turn them to them for such a permission. Okay, let's move on then. We will now talk about teaching, academic work. So you defended your thesis called Organizational and Economic Mechanisms for Reforming Electricity Market in the Western region of Ukraine. You did that in 2021. I have a question about your research and the writing which you did on your manuscript. So the dissertation, and that was the manuscript was published in 2021. Your co-author is your scientific advisor and possibly a relative of the scientific advisor, since they have this identical names. If you wish, you can explain that. And your manuscript is about organizational and economic mechanisms for reforming the electricity market in the regions of Ukraine. That manuscript has no mentioning that each of the co-authors has a separate authorship. As we said, that this is the situation when your co-authorship cannot be disintegrated. What we are asking is what exactly was written in this book by your scientific advisor and that relative of his. If we compare the text of your dissertation and the text of the monograph, in many parts they are not just similar, but they are identical. So this is your part, yours. So what did they do? Or what motivated you to include two people who didn't really do very much for this manuscript, but you list them as your co-authors? Yes. On May 7th, 2021, I defended my dissertation in the Academy of Food Technology. The dissertation was called on Organizational and Economic Mechanisms for Reforming Electricity Market in the Western Regions of Ukraine. My scientific work was not doubted by what is the commission that does it, which revises the dissertations after they're defended, that they sometimes call you to report. So there were no doubts about my scientific work. I received the relevant diploma and received the degree of the candidate of economic sciences. My scientific advisor when I was preparing that work was Konstantin Volodymyrovich Pavlov. I worked very closely with him. He was the scientific advisor, and I prepared my dissertation with him. We shared information. I was happy to hear his advice. As a result of such close cooperation with my scientific advisor and his wife, Olena Mykolaievna, who is also a scientist, and she's a doctor of economics. She's also a professor and the head of a chair with Volyn National University. She was also involved in the preparation of my scientific work, and we issued the manuscript together. What do you mean she was engaged? Advice, ideas? Yes. Advice, ideas, tips, ideas about structure. So now you're saying that in your dissertation you were using her ideas. Roman, be very careful in what you're saying. I'm not saying I was using her ideas, but when you talk to people who are professionals, who are well respected in the scientific community, who have experience, it is always very good for a young academician. Okay, let's come back to the manuscript, or we will now have a lot of questions that you will bring about yourself. So that work belongs to you, and you have two co-authors. What is this share in this specific work, which is manuscript, where you were supposed to be your monography? Good. Does the text of monography of this manuscript coincide with your dissertation? I didn't go word by word, really, but this is in the biggest part, yes, they should coincide. It looks like that now. You defended a dissertation. A dissertation is something which you do independently. As a result of this qualification work, you received a scientific degree. Now you're saying that the manuscript that was published based on your dissertation has two more authors, although this is your work. Well, from the point of view of academic integrity, it doesn't look good, because now you cannot explain what was the input into the manuscript of these people. If you say that the manuscript is basically your thesis, well, a manuscript cannot be completely identical. Yes, and that's what we're asking about. What is the difference between your dissertation and the manuscript? Do you have new chapters or new visions, new results that you've come to, which you did not see in your dissertation? So that's what we're asking. Why do you have two people who did not write the dissertation? It's not a piano that you can play in 4 hands. Yes, you're right. That dissertation is my independent piece of writing, my scientific work, where a lot of mentorship and help was provided by my scientific advisor. The manuscript, as you see, has a different title. It's wider. It has wider coverage because it is the electricity market, not only of the west of Ukraine that is covered, but Ukrainian regions in general. Well, that's more or less what we wanted to hear. So it's a wider scope. Yes, maybe I did not understand the question you were asking from the very beginning, but yeah, that is it. Okay. Now we have it. So Pavlov and his wife were provided the material that made it wider. So that was their input. Yes. Can you specify the volume of their input? I understand we will not be counting pages, or you were not doing that, of course, but maybe you can say, well, I can assume we are 3 co-authors. If you divide 100 by 3, the base is my dissertation. So hypothetically, I think 50% is my work, and then 25% will come from both of the co-authors. Thank you. I think we could be very grateful if, I know it's not for now, but if you could provide us with additional clarification on this question after the interview. I think you have your dissertation, you have the manuscript. Could you please, using that, specify the input of your co-authors? Yes, I will provide you with all of the information regarding the request. Okay, thank you. Would the members of the commission have additional questions? Andriy, please. While the colleagues were doing this intellectual discussion, I was doing simple arithmetics. I was trying to compare the value of that share in the cooperative that you acquired with the income of yours and your wife, starting with 2010. So that you wouldn't say we only took the previous year. Say what I have. I'm not trying to blame you. No, or accuse. I'm just stating the fact, and I'm expecting your reaction. The total income starting in 2010 and then up to 2016, and we know that you acquired that property sometimes in the middle of that year, not in the end of 2016, but let it be the whole of it. So before tax, your total income was 655,000 for all of that period. I looked then what happened before 2014 when dollar was 8 hryvnias per $1. That was 293,000. which is about 30-something thousand American dollars. Of course, you needed to pay taxes, you needed to eat and to buy clothes. The income of your wife reached 175,000, and I think the same applies to her income as well. Apparently, you wouldn't have enough funds without borrowing. You said you took a credit. What was the source of funding for acquiring that property? Kind of doesn't seem to be enough, no? Good, thank you. When I was providing you with the figures, you said that here we were supported by both my wife's parents and my parents, and we invested jointly into that because it was our goal for us as a new family to have our own apartment. I provided the Competition Commission about the information on sale of Kia Sophia, which was my car. I sold it for $3,800, and I used that money and the funds that our parents helped with and our savings. And when all that was put together, we could buy the flat. Yes, you said it is a significant acquisition, and you said it had some symbolic value as your first apartment of a new family. Can you probably remember the shares that of the input from you and your wife and the parents or parents-in-law? Usually people remember that, how much they bought or how much they invested and how much they owe to other people. I wouldn't really compare the shares invested my parents and my wife's parents, who gave more and who gave less. It's not a competition. Let's do it that. Your family and your parents or parents-in-law families. So my family and my parents and parents-in-laws. I think 40% these were our funds, and more than half came from our parents. That was their cumulative support that we received.
Thank you. Who is your wife by education? Is she a doctor? My wife has 2 degrees, and now she's acquiring the 3rd degree. Her first degree is in pharmaceutics, and her 2nd degree, if I'm not mistaken, is management of educational facilities. For a rather long period of time, she was teaching in one of the educational facilities in Lusk City. Yes, we can see that. It was a medical educational facility. Yes, it was. We have paid attention to the fact that in 2023, quite recently, she acquires the income from the international organization, Health Rights International. What means rights in healthcare? What kind of work did she do for this organization? And whether she had prior experience related to patient rights and related spheres. We've paid attention to that because it has coincided with your work in the Secretariat of the Ombudsperson. Indeed, this was during the period when I worked in the Ombudsperson's office, but these activities of my wife, it was a short-term project. She was involved by this company to help in implementation of its certain projects. She does have education in pharmaceutics, but all the friends and all the relatives, if anybody gets sick or anybody has a cold, they call her as a doctor. And mostly, we also do that when we don't ask the doctor, but we just go to the pharmacy and ask the pharmacist to give us something to treat the cold. This is a everyday situation that takes place. So my wife, not having the education of a doctor, medical doctor, but having the practical experience of medical consultations, she was involved in this organization's project. It's quite difficult for me to say what kind of functions she performed there. It's quite difficult for me to say she worked in Lutsk. It's interesting for us whether the contract is there, what kind of expertise she provided. If there is no NDA there, could you please, I think that the NDA is not there, although basically for public administrative procedure, I think that we can also circumvene the NDA. We would be thankful if you provided us this agreement. And also on employment of a, let's call it a semi-legal term, not quite close, but rather close people. In the secretariat, there was a husband of the sister of your wife, Yaroslav Navrotsky, working in the secretariat. Did you see any conflict of interest there? Possible conflict of interest, and in which way did he get his job at the secretariat of the ombudsperson? Was it a competition, competitive selection? So according to the law of Ukraine on the ombudsperson on human rights with Verkhovna Rada, the only person who appoints people is the ombudsperson. And they cannot delegate this function not to the head of the secretariat, nor the representatives of the ombudsperson by certain directions. So the counselor to the ombudsperson, Yaroslav was his position. It's not the public service position. And he was not my subordinate as the head of the secretariat. And either legally, no functional possibilities for us to have some kind of contradictions in work could not have happened because the counselor directly is a subordinate to the ombudsperson. And accordingly, only the ombudsperson identifies the tasks, the remuneration. Of course, a counselor is a patronate service, and it's a person who rather has a lot of trust, is a trusted person. Of course, if you know that, how did the ombudsperson come to know about the high professional qualifications of Yaroslav Navrotsky? That's one thing. And the second question I'd like to ask, let's hear your answer to the first one first. Okay. Well, taking into account that in 2015, between Lutsk and Volnovakha, there was a memorandum on cooperation signed, brother cities after the tragic events after 2014, in 2014, where 14 men died under Volnovakha from Lutsk, and this led to signing the memorandum, which started the close cooperation between Volnovakha and Lutsk. And because the ombudsperson, Dmytro Lubinets, is a native to Volnovakha city, he came to Lutsk to sign this memorandum. And it was when I also met Dmytro Lubinets in person. After that, there were various social, charitable events implemented under this provisional title, East and West are together. So children from Volnovakha came for Easter holidays to the western part of Ukraine. I quite often Dmytro Lubinets personally visited Lutsk quite often. And because of these circumstances, Yaroslav Navrotsky had the opportunity to meet them. So it was direct contact during this brother city relationship between Volnovakha and Lutsk. Yes, rather long-term and rather constant. did anybody ask for your opinion during this appointment? I don't quite remember that. I'm not saying you were lobbying for him or protecting him, but did he at least ask for your comments? Of course, we discuss candidates when appointing people. I know him as a professional in economics and finances. I did not see any threats there with the fact that he will be able to help the ombudsperson professionally and perform the tasks that the ombudsperson will privately and directly give to him. So you know Yaroslav in life, more or less. Of course, not more or less, but quite well. So he had a certain business activity, and this business activity, I don't see any relation to you here, but maybe you can give us an answer in a certain way. It happened in waves, you know? So there is a period that is 0, and then it's 2019, and then he has 589,500, and then the next year is almost 2 million. And if the next year was 2022, I would understand, you know, the big war started and businesses, if it didn't die, it just perished. It dried up. But the situation here is quite strange. And in their activities, it's supposed to be quite systematic. It's selling food products, some bakery, some meat. Can you explain what it was exactly? It's quite difficult for me to comment on the business activities of Yaroslav Navrotsky. Those were different periods. You're quite right that this is sales. He changed the place where he was conducting the activities. So he finished renting one place, and then he could not find a good quality place in terms of having a lot of people going through that place. Maybe that was the period when he was changing the location of his shop. As far as I know, it's quite okay. In the last periods, there is a client base, and as far as you see, the last periods are quite all right. And the final question, you said that at a certain point you decided to stop your political activities and become a public servant. But at the same time, you were an aide to Lubinets, the MP, before he was appointed the ombudsperson in the period of 2014 and 19, and in the period between 19 and 22. Not in the last period. No. I would like to emphasize that the aide to MP Dmitry Lubinets, I was in the period between April 2015. That was after I met him. Again, Lutsk and Volnovakha became brother cities after the circumstances of the war, and East and West together, this kind of project. And until he finished being an MP in 2019. So so you were not in the new convocation? No, I was not. And then the question that I think everybody would ask, did it influence your decision to change the career to the career of a public official, this appointment of MP that you do quite well, to become the ombudsperson on human rights for Verkhovna Rada? Quite evidently, you could have seen some kind of an opportunity of a career growth there. I would like to draw your attention to the fact that it's not quite public service, because this position was not part of a public service positions, but to the work with the public service. I started having connection to it in 2017, and it's quite a logical period. And then it went on until 2022, when the ombudsperson that was elected by the parliament offered me to join the new team, offered to help him build the team. And basically, he also offered to head the secretariat of the ombudsperson, and I fully supported this offer and successfully moved to Kyiv. And are you ready to discuss quitting this job now, or do you think it's not the time to do it? Or maybe you think that the people should know why you left the secretariat now? I don't think that this is such an important question that we need to discuss it and spend the time for it. But if the Competition Commission wants to, we can talk about this. Well, you should decide whether the public should know about this or should not know about this. When two adults discuss their perspectives and they don't see a joint direction for development, then they honestly shake hands in a manly way and everybody chooses their way to go forward. So this situation for me is more convenient right now. It gives me the opportunities to continue to take part in the competition with the perspective to be elected the head of an ACP without any other obligations with my previous employer based on the previous position that I had there. Thank you. I think that we're quite satisfied with your answer. Thank you very much. Thank you for this interview, for taking part in the competition. Be patient. Thank you for your attention. You do have a good day. And we are going to continue, and we're asking to invite the next candidate, Alexander Skomarov.